Ah! This will not be this will not be an organized day, chat. This will not be an organized day. What the fuck is happening over here? This application has a lot of noise, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that. I've never had anybody have the noise on during stream, so I was completely unprepared for just how much fucking sound is in the fishing game. It is crazy. Let's see. Way to fish. Was it the application? Somebody fish. Let me make sure it wasn't this. Were y'all hearing that? Am I prepared? Kinda. Kinda not. Oh, ever prepared? Yes. Also, thanks for the glizzies, Saru. And, your 20 stream streak. Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, it's not fishing yet. It's not fishing yet. It only makes noise when somebody fishes. But, like, I kind of want to make it make noise so you can hear just how obnoxious it is. That's not it. Okay, let's, properties, hook rate, blah, 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 window priority. Okay. I think I'm gonna explicitly add the application audio capture, lurk bait. We're doing it live. I am not muted. Nice try. Let's see. There we go. Lurk bait. Same executable. Okay. All right, that's on. And then I gotta hit transition to apply that. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna mute it pretty soon, but, like, it's like a whole thing. And it's like, oh god, you know the jingling keys? That's kind of the soundscape on this fishing thing, is the jingling keys. Yeah, mobile game jingling keys noises. Alright, I'm gonna turn that off. That's obnoxious. Let's see. There we go. It's muted again. But now I have the, this is better content. Fuck you, buddy. You can take your 69 glizzies back. Oh god, so Discord has been up to some stuff. Ooh, that's ugly. There we go. So shove the glizzies back in there. I'll do it through the pores. Discord with the pinky raised. Yeah. The, so I also... How do I organize my thoughts today? We're talking about Discord. We're talking about... youngins. I love that... like, pseudo-cursive is, like, its own font now. Because I've almost forgotten how to write in cursive. Just almost. But now, like, going halfway with it is like a whole ass font. I guess I should put a tail on the U. And the ends looking at youngins and MySpace. That's going to be a thing we talk about today. Um, we're gonna talk about my SOC. I only learned how to write your. I only learned how to write my name in cursive. Neat. RM so old he first learned hieroglyphics. Man, I bet your handwriting was a lot better than mine when I came out of school and when versus when you came out of school, because they used to handwriting used to be a grade that you could fail. That absolute handwriting used to be a subject you could actually fail. Like, now that we're talking about youngins. Actually, I have no idea how, like, Saru's school system was. But I know in mine... yeah, there he goes. There he goes. I know in mine, you could actually fail handwriting. And they took that away from us when I was about in middle school, which is about when they really get... That was about the same time they got really strict with the cursive. So just as they were getting strict with, like, how you wrote cursive, which, like, the initial lessons were in, like, 3rd grade or so. But just as they were getting strict with it, they removed it from the curriculum. I doubt Saru got that kind of relief. But yeah, like, so if you're, like, in, like, kindergarten or 1st grade and you're doing, like, basic handwriting, that's a subject you can fail. It was only 50 of us in a windswept barn on the plains learning grades 1 through 12. That's kind of comfy. I'm picturing a schoolhouse with, like, a manual water pump, honestly. We had a manual water pump despite being much, much larger than that. That's just a consequence of where we grew up. Like, there were, like, working water fountains, but they kept the manual water pump after they put in all, like, the actual plumbing. I didn't walk. I went to school out of county. It was more like drive 50 minutes to school and 50 minutes back. So you're leaving for school, like, you're leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning, and you're getting back at 7 o'clock, and everybody is wondering why the fuck you don't have time to do your homework. So I was like, GRM, why can't you ever seem to make time for homework? Oh, I don't know. It's because I'm in bed, like, I'm out of bed earlier than you, and I'm getting home by the time you're going to bed. Maybe that's why. Because it wasn't just like a 50-minute drive. My mom was a teacher in that school district. So the way my day went was leave the house at 5:30 to go to school and start classes at 7. This was high school. Get out of school at, like, 2 o'clock, but then go to my mom's school, who taught in the elementary school in that area, and then stay there until her day was over at 5, and then drive 50 minutes back home. And so, like, all the other kids in class, like, they get home 2:30, 3 o'clock. Their homework is done before their parents get home, and they're doing like the latchkey kid life, you know, if they even, like, start their homework. Like, they just go play with their friends, and then they start homework later. But I'm not even getting home until, like, they have done their homework, played around with their friends, and had dinner, and I'm getting home, and then I'm leaving the house again at 5:30 in the morning. And it's just like, fuck. RM, everybody else has time to do their homework. Fuck you. Fuck you. Oh, jeez. I didn't have air conditioning either, so there was also that. We had to go back to the I knew it! I knew it. I knew it. But, yeah, so that's how school went from me from K all the way through 12. Was that series of events. For some reason, I have trouble putting structure into my days. Can't imagine why. Because, you know, when you get home, it's like, oh, it's not like do your homework, it's like, okay, which homework gets done and which homework do I not turn in? Because I don't have time to do all of it. Air conditioning was invented after my graduation. Shit. Like, my school had air conditioning. I liked that part. But my house didn't. Not for lack of trying. It was just a piece of shit trailer with a combination air conditioner and furnace for some reason. So we had a propane tank and all of that. Saru had to write notes on wax tablets. I would not be surprised if that's something Saru has actually been taught to do. Like, as part of like an art or history class or something, but I would not be surprised if that was a thing Saru has done. If it got too cold, we went mammoth hunting. That's great. But yeah, furnaces in double wide trailers are kind of scary, actually. I think a lot of the time. All right, how do I turn that noise off at the application level? There we go. There's the mute button. Holy crap, that's distracting. Budding. But we didn't have carbon monoxide detectors, so the furnace only came on when it was like cold, which here is fortunately rare. But every so often we would have to cut the furnace on and be like, okay, does everybody die from carbon monoxide poisoning tonight? Let's find out. It was a time. Sometimes we would sleep by the fireplace instead, because that trailer had a fireplace. So, like, all 6 of us, actually. Yeah, there were 6 of us. Most of my memories of doing this were when it was only 5. My sister came in pretty late, like my youngest sister, the one you guys have seen. But we would put a fire in the fireplace, and we would all sleep there together. And I almost burnt the house down once because my teddy bear was cold. That was my reasoning. My teddy bear was also cold. You know, like, if they're cold, if you're cold, they're cold, bring them inside. So I'm like, teddy bear obviously needs to be closer to the fire so the teddy bear can stop being cold. And then its ear caught fire. And, that was almost bad. Yeah. So that's a thing that happened. How did we get on this? Holy shit, what a ramble. That does kind of dovetail into my CPE reporting. I've started actually reporting my CPEs. I still have to email them because I emailed them about the Twitch thing and they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Just do it under this category. But the whole point was I couldn't find that category in their reporting tool. But based on the guidance I received, I might just YOLO it. But, he actually started doing the thing he started streaming for. Yeah, I also, was told in no uncertain terms that I would have a cap of 40 credits for this. So I still have to do, like, the other stuff. So I can only get, like, a third of my points from this activity, which I plan for. Like, I've been doing other stuff. Yeah, minus 80 DKP, actually. A whole 80. Like, I need 120 points for the entire 3-year thing. We just started the 3rd year. So, like, 40 points is worth, like, a whole fucking year. So that's cool. But I cannot... Oh, yeah. Yeah, but, like, I need to get 80 points the other way. But I've been, like, reading books and going to webinars and shit. I should be fine. But I need to actually start doing the reporting, which I started doing earlier this week. But, so I'm going to worry a lot less about the proportion of time I'm actually talking about, about stuff from our cybersecurity domains, and I'll stop worrying about that so directly, because sometimes it kind of kills the conversation because I have to like steer it back into content that relates to something I can report. And the reason for that is if I keep doing these streams at like 2 to 4 hours a week, and I can only get 40 points for these streams over the course of 3 years, then I could be talking about the subject for like a 30-minute segment of every stream, and that would still get me over the finish line at the end of the year. So I'm gonna still try to keep it at about like half to a quarter. Imagine an interesting and engaging RM stream. I know. I hope to have one soon. But yeah, I was kind of sweating that too much. So now I have to sweat it less. It's still my goal to like be on that topic. I'm just going to worry less about like, oh god, which one of the 8 domains is this? How do I justify this account? I want to worry less about that. But there is, I think there's a useful conversation to be had about the history of how social networks came to be, because a lot of people view their privacy practices insofar as they actually practice them in like a vacuum. And, you know, Nero through ZV showed us today that like not everybody has that context, including people who are like in their mid-20s or later. They just like, they might not know why we do the things that we do or how we got here, because they literally like never saw it and nobody bothered to explain it to them, and like kind of why would they? So I'm going to be going over that tonight. But a funny story this morning. I actually kind of I think I might have spooked the SOC a little bit, like based on their reaction. And for those of you that don't know, the SOC is the Security Operations Center. And it works. Why learn? Yeah. I actually don't hate that, and here's why. First of all, I've got to figure out why Spotify stopped playing. There we go. Second, a lot of people are just busy. Like, when you think how you were at, like, 22 or 23, this is why I'm actually, like, deeply suspicious of anybody who's, like, super into politics in their, like, late teens, early 20s, and they're not actively pursuing a degree in political science. Like, I'm super suspicious of those people because it makes me think they have nothing going on in their lives. Because, like, when I was that age, I was super hungry. I was both mentally and physically. I wasn't making a lot of money. I had to eat. I had to have a roof over my head. And I was like at the bottom of the skill level work experience barrel, so I had the shitty jobs. You know, like you do, but that's your Gen X. Red Dawn was real, yeah. Yeah, no, y'all were in the middle of the fucking Cold War. Which, again, every time I bring up the Cold War, I like to remind people that it did not actually end. And we are still in the middle of the Cold War. And that is why Ukraine is in the trouble that it's in, is because the Cold War did not actually end. We just ended up in a superior position, but the war itself kept going. Russia was just less able to fuck with us as hard as often. But it didn't stop. It was just like the constant threat of nuclear attack went away. And the constant poking each other about it went away. That's kind of the big difference. And I was on the very, very tail end of that. But that would have been a big thing for Saru. That would have been a big thing for Saru. Like, Saru remembers the Tanker Wars. A war now of US versus rest of the world would be unfair and one-sided. Absolutely. And we're not even maintaining our military at, like, a quarter of what we used to. Like, on a per capita GDP basis. Yeah, if Golden Dome gets made and it, like, actually works, there's a lot of people who might hit the find out stage. Because there's a lot of mutually assured destruction that has let a lot of people do a lot of FA without the FO. And if Golden Dome gets to the point where we're just confident we can start delivering decades worth of FO, that'll be an interesting time to live through. I won't say good or bad, but it'll be interesting. On that note, from a geopolitical thing, it's interesting that we're making moves in our own hemisphere now. That's been really interesting to see. Because even when I was a kid, when I was like, I want to say I was about 11 years old, I struck up a conversation with my dad of like, well, if the Cuban Missile Crisis was so bad, and all this other stuff was so bad, and like having all these weapons and munitions parked at our door was so awful, and we won the Cold War, why is Cuba still being ruled by like this USSR friendly communist dictator that doesn't like us at all? Like, why don't we just go in there and knock him over? It wouldn't even be hard. And I don't think my dad had a good answer for an 11-year-old, because, like, who would? But I think that day is coming. I think that day is rapidly approaching. Because without the threat of being punished for it, there really is, from a geopolitical standpoint, from a security standpoint, there's no reason to allow that to just be a thing. Good question, why Cuba still? Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I had these questions when I was 11 is because, like, I just saw my first war on television at that point. That was, like, Gulf War I. Which, Gulf War I really wasn't Gulf War I. Again, I bring up the Tanker Wars. It was just a much hotter conflict, but the so-called First Gulf War happened when I was like 6 or so, something like that. 6 or 7. I bet Venezuela made some world leaders shit their pants. Oh, I bet it did. I bet it made a few of them. But yeah, so, like, I saw the first Gulf War happen when I was, like, 6 or 7. So by the time I'm 11, I'm like, I'm learning about the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I'm like, why is this still a thing? It's like, why is that guy still there? Yeah, Gulf War I was over in a week. It was. I thought that's how wars were. That was my first one. You gotta keep in mind, like, I'm 6. It's like, oh, that's what a war is? Why do people hate war so much? That was painless for us. Man, that is some United States privilege right there, where you grow up, you see this war happen on television, it lasts a week, hardly anybody on your side gets hurt, their side is completely destroyed, and you're like, wow, why does everybody hate war again? That wasn't so bad. It made US overconfident in Gulf War II? Absolutely it did. I'm not contesting that, but like from a child's perspective, it's like, why are we not at war all the time? We're good at this. It's kind of funny to think about that now. But yeah, I think 11-year-old me had a very good question, which was why Cuba still? Why is that still a thing? I think it might not be a thing for too much longer. On that note, does that boat thing glow in the dark for anybody else? Does everybody know about the boat thing? I actually haven't looked at it in detail. The only thing I know for sure is that the boat was stolen, but I've seen all sorts of reports about how there was like only one US citizen on the boat, and everybody else on the boat was like Cuban nationals, and I don't know what part of that is true. The only part I've looked into is that the boat was in fact stolen. Oh, Plaus doesn't know about the boat thing. We're trying, it looks to me like we're trying to pull, they touched our boats, and you know what happens when they touch our boats? When anybody touches our boats. Except Iran. Apparently in Iran, Iran is allowed to touch our boats. Iran is allowed to touch our boats. But, apparently, a little boat that looks like this, we'll say this is the water line when it's not planing. But, one of those, they called it a speedboat, which, that's a weird choice of boat. After all the Reddit cope about, oh my god, we're shooting all these, fishing boats that have 4 outboard motors, and calling those fishing boats. It's weird that a speedboat was involved in this one. But essentially what happened was like a boat full of like 8 to 11 dudes. I don't even know how many it was. Was stolen from the Sarasota area, perhaps a little south of that. Traveled all the way to Cuban waters, was challenged in Cuban waters, and according to Cuba, shot at them first, and then they ended that boat. The Cuban Navy, insofar as you can call it a navy, ended that boat. And apparently one of the people on that boat was a United States citizen, and the attitude from Washington seems to indicate that they want to escalate this. Cuba claims it was Cuban national Cuba says these guys were like not supposed to be in your country. They're our guys, but they're like domestic terrorist our guys, and that's why we shot them. Also, they shot at us first, which I'm not sure how Cuba knows that, because Cuba is not the first person I think of when I think of intelligence agency that would just know that off the bat. But let's say, but also it would be really, that's also a really convenient cover story for Cuba not to get in trouble. It glows. It glows so hard. I don't know who's lying at this point. Which is why I haven't bothered to look up the story, because I'm sure the story is going to change like 3 or 4 more times over the course of the week. But yeah, we have an international incident right now over a boat, and it looks like, based on like just everything I've been through, and I'm sure Saru could make his own comments on this, based on everything I've been through, and all of the, foreign policy I've seen, it sure as fuck looks like a pretense. It sure as fuck looks like a pretense to go into Cuba. I think that's why Cuba might have been so quick to report on what they thought that was. Because, like, we're having the ice surge now, right? What if you go into those what if you supplied those nationals with a plan? Like, let's get glowy here. Like, what if you said, hey, we're going to deport you, but how about you steal this boat? We'll give you some weapons. How about you steal this boat? We'll give you some weapons, and you can go home with a boat and weapons, and then after they leave, we get on the horn with Cuba, and we're like, hey, Cuba, you got some terrorists coming your way, FYI. Oops, there's been an incident. Some people got shot. Damn. That's unfortunate. Guess we'll have to invade Cuba now. Oh, wait, one of them was a U.S. Oh, man, that's rough. Well, you know, Cuba's been on our south doorstep, you know, way too long already. How about we just finish this? You know, it's like the perfect fucking pretense. And, like, it's right after Venezuela as well. And, like, as soon as we did Venezuela, even the stopped clocks on the national news were like, I bet we go into Cuba soon. And lo and behold, there's a maritime incident. Hey Saru, when was the last time a Cuban anything shot at a US anything? I can't remember. I'm not sure that's happened in my lifetime. Okay, let me rephrase, Saru. When's the last time that happened and was reported to the public? Because I can't recall any. I can't recall any. So yeah, like, potentially before I was born, definitely while I was still a very, very small child. I like how your answer changed there. But yeah, this is the first I've ever heard of a Cuban anything shooting an American anything for any reason in my lifetime. And it just so happens to be a few weeks after we go into Venezuela, or I guess a month, right after the State of the Union, where that guy was awarded the Medal of Honor. Yeah, since Bay of Pigs. Yeah. So, like, just a few days after that dude's awarded the Medal of Honor, and I really should remember his name. A few days after that, we have an incident with Cuba. Huh. Huh. And then I saw today that there was some comment from Trump about, like, a peaceful takeover? Like a peaceful hostile takeover or some dumb shit like that? And I'm like, huh. I wonder what conversations have been going on for the last month. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, Trump suggests US could carry out friendly takeover of Cuba. Where I need to get like an actual quote on that, because I really do not trust the news to like quote things accurately and in context. Something I used to at least trust the news to like put the right thing in quotes. But over the last 20, 25 years, I've been given a lot of reasons to just like ignore anything in quote marks. Let's see. What was the whole statement? They have no money, they have no anything. Maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. Maybe we'll buy it. Maybe we'll buy it, I guess is what he's suggesting there. We'll just buy Cuba. That even that whole statement seems kind of out of context to the question, but like, yeah. So I'm not sure how long Cuba's going to be like a thing. Anyway, scared my sock this morning. So this morning when I was walking into work, I was thinking about our disaster recovery tabletop exercise, which isn't due until the end of next year. You know, like you do. And as I was walking onto the premises, I came across one of the vehicles they use, because like the premises is kind of large. So I came across one of the vehicles that they use to go around collecting trash. And I'm like, huh, you know, this is just a Toyota Hilux. I could buy a Toyota Hilux and paint it with, like, a similar color scheme. And I could get on premises past the physical barriers pretty easily. And I bet with that, combined with the bystander effect, I could smuggle in weapons. I could smuggle in an explosive device. That actually wouldn't be too hard. So I go to my, like, I get on my email after I get in the office, and I'll be like, hey, SOC guys, have we thought about this vulnerability at all? Would our cameras that we use to detect whether people are carrying firearms or not, would those tell us something is up here? So, apparently we're going to have an exercise about that soon. Apparently we're going to put that to the test. Oh, God. The person who runs the SOC called that very, out-of-the-box thinking. And I'll be honest, guys, that didn't seem that far-fetched to me. Maybe I just have a gift as thinking like an attacker, but that seemed pretty... That seemed pretty like this is an attack that already happens in other contexts. I'm just applying that type of attack to our context and how you would tailor it to our environment. It just didn't seem like that far-fetched to me. I was kind of like, why haven't I noticed this before? But yeah, we're gonna be testing our security system to make sure that we can detect something like that in the future. So that's cool. So everybody who's working with me, you're about to get a little bit safer. So that's fine. That's fun. Anyway, I just wanted to tell that story about talking to the SOC this morning. We can erase that. I think... Alright, I'm gonna make a note of exactly what I wanted to talk... Because these things are kind of related. And that's why that was a very timely thing to happen in the Discord today, is because, like, these are kind of, like, related concepts. Anyway, so I would know your client. There's payment processor issues here. There's regulatory... Oof. Hold on. There's regulatory... landscape issues here. You know, if I had to guess, because I don't actually remember, like, let's be real, MySpace was a long time ago, and I did not have time to prep for stream today. So if I had to guess, I would say MySpace happened right after Section 230. So let's see, MySpace launch date was 2003, August 1st. Section 230... Wasn't that part of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act? Enacted... Yeah, 1996. So that's not even DMCA, that's Communications Decency Act. So yeah, I was right. Yippee! Yeah. Yeah, if my sister were here, she would also be doing the yippee. She loves that game. Like, I love that game too, but like that is also our thing. That is also our thing. Well, Section 230 itself is older than that, but as using it to apply it to internet platforms was 1996. You're absolutely right, Saru. 230, whether by letter or by concept, is much older than that. And that goes all the way back to concepts around common carriers. It's like like the FTC something in I want to say 73, somewhere around there. Maybe even 68 was when Common Carrier started being a thing. Very old. But, yeah, my sister loves Golden Sun. I'm not sure who likes it more. Like, me and my sister both like it a lot. She might like it slightly more than I do. It gives her the warm fuzzies. Actually, yeah, I'd say she does, because her ringtones are still Golden Sun sound effects, and they have been since I have known her to have a phone at all. Like, if somebody texts her, it does, like, the menu confirm noise, and she has been doing that since she has had a phone that lets you assign sounds to those functions. Which I believe is, like, as old as the Motorola Razr. She has had Golden Sun noises on her phone for, like, events. So... yeah, because, like, the last time she was over for stream, I noticed that she had the same soundboard for her phone that she did when we were still living together in our parents' house. I was like, Jesus. Oh, well, I'll have her locate those for you. Actually, let me make a note. Locate Golden Sun sound alert pack for phone for Plaus. Okay, so so we need to describe to get to where Discord is now. We kind of have to describe how the internet functioned when it was new. And when I say the internet, what I'm actually talking about is the World Wide Web. It's not actually the same thing. The World Wide Web is actually a separate concept to the internet as a technology. That's why websites tend to, we've been getting away from this actually in like the last 12 years or so, but that's why all websites used to start with www. That was like their top level, or their bottom level actually, domain name. So like www would be like the name of a computer, because like that's kind of how that worked. Anyway, but the World Wide Web was essentially as you would know it today, like a collection of websites that made up the publicly accessible portions of the internet, because the internet was not always publicly accessible. So the World Wide Web as a concept early on was like, hey, this part of the internet is intended to be publicly accessible and to some degree discoverable, because discoverable is also a big thing. So search engines as you know them they don't exist yet. What we had instead were web portals. And to explain web portals real quick, you know how like your company will have a web portal? You'll go to like the company landing page, or they'll have a separate landing page if you're an employee. And then you get to the applications that you need to interface with through that web page, like your HR department, time reporting, all that stuff. That used to be how the entire internet worked, and this was like a new thing. This is what made the World Wide Web the World Wide Web. This is what was making the internet accessible at the time. But the important thing is that massive indexing of the web was in its infancy at this point, and essentially didn't exist the way that you understand it now. That's the best I can describe it. What you would do instead is you would just know... You would... Okay, actually, we're going to put that on the left. Web portals. That's America Online. That would be, at the time, Yahoo. Lycos was a new player at this point. Those were your web portals. Those were your big three. Lycos was the smallest of those three by a large margin, and the biggest one was America Online. Or you could know about a website word of mouth. Which is kind of how, if you've ever been on the dark web, that's kind of how .onion websites work right now, is that you have to be told about them. And for a large... Well, no, I guess I'm older now. I guess I can't say a large portion anymore. Those were the late 80s, 70s, and 80s. The internet was just Ethernet connections between unis and... Yeah, and I understand that a little. I'm only going to talk about the part of the internet that I lived, because how MySpace came to be and how that led to Discord is kind of related to this specific part of the internet anyway. And so I might as well start there. I'm aware of that other stuff, but I didn't live that part of it, if you know what I mean. So I don't want to really, like, talk a whole bunch about stuff I didn't live. And some of this stuff, I'm going to have to look it up later to confirm I remember it right. Like, that's how long ago it was. But I did live this era. And another thing you have to understand is, like, the era I'm talking about right now, pre-MySpace... Section 230 was not a thing. Because another thing that Internet Decency Act did... Now I remember this. I remember this very clearly now, because I remember what happened as a result. Internet Decency Act. So 1996, that's Bill Clinton. What do you think the primary effect somebody my age would notice about the 1996 Internet Decency Act is, Saru? What do you think the thing I noticed about that act was? Ethernet connections were all hard-coded? Yeah. Yeah, they were. Even as far forward as this, we used to be like little dorks and like NS lookup the address the IP addresses for the websites we went to a lot, and we would be like the cool kids that used IP addresses to access our websites, because even as far forward as this, they tended to only have one IP address that did not change, which is completely different to how things work now. But we would be like, yeah, we're the edgy hacker kids. We're gonna access Google.com, which wasn't a thing at this time, but we're gonna access Yahoo by its IP. IDA wasn't about decency. Yeah, no, it wasn't. The thing that made me aware of the 1996 Internet Decency Act was that uh, suddenly all of the porn websites I went to had age gates on them. And about half of the porn websites I went to decided to simply shut down instead of continue under that act. So yeah, that's why I was like, "Oh, light bulb moment. That's what that was." Um this is actually why little me did not like Bill Clinton very much. I'll be honest. This was like my early formative political years right here was Bill Clinton made my free porn go away. Because porn at the time was just like free. Because any Tom, Dick, or Harry could just put up a website with pornographic images on it and there were no age gates required. So you could just like... There was just no incentive to monetize it because it was just everywhere. So you could just go get it. So that was the thing. Age gates equal, are you 18? You are, we trust you, come in. Yeah, they were. It wasn't like they were robust age gates, but like some of the people running these websites were like, do we really want to risk being investigated under this law for this hobby server we have running in our basement? And for a lot of those, the answer was no. That reminds me, I gotta take down, I at least have to, like, in the current regulatory climate, the fan website that I have up right now, like, I'm leaving it up because it's not a big burden on me and I don't have to touch it, but under the current regulatory uncertainty, I'm thinking I take it down for that same reason. I think it's becoming a big liability for me in a legal way, or potentially in the near future may become a liability to me in a way that I'm not willing to manage. So that might be going away very soon. That reminds me, like, that's homework I have to do this weekend. It's like I keep forgetting it, and then I remember that I've got to do it just as I get busy. It's a whole thing. Let's see. Then I've got... There's another facet to all of this. Like, you have... We'll come back to this page, but there's, like, another page of context here, which was, like, this was also pre-always on internet. And that's a big cultural thing. This one change greatly affected how the internet was used and how big it was culturally. So this is like a hard divide. So, and then like you've got before, you've got after. So before, anytime you wanted to access the internet, you had to get on your computer, and engage your modem, which was often, but not always, a dial-up modem. There were some edge technologies at the time, but the vast majority of connections were dial-up modem connections. And what that meant was you had to negotiate internet activity depending on the rules of your house with your whole family. Because if you only had one phone line, and many families only had one phone line, if you got on the internet, the phone was unusable for everybody else. So if mom or dad is expecting a phone call from a relative, you can't use the internet. If they're expecting a call from some sort of business contact, or they owe somebody money, any of that, you could not get online because the moment that they engaged in that activity, they would kick you off. And it's not like they had to like sign into something and kick you off. It's like the act of picking the phone up would interrupt the internet connection. And vice versa. You could attempt to redial while they were on the phone and it would fuck up their phone call. So if you were on one end of the house and they were on the other end and you were both trying to do this on your end, like there's no indication on your end that somebody picked up the phone. So if you weren't directly aware of that, you might try it to immediately redial, and then you would have like kind of this war with the person on the other side of the house, sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. Because like almost anything could knock you off the internet. Like almost anything could knock you off your dial-up connection. A lot of the times ISPs would have like activity timeouts. Like if your traffic was below a certain threshold for 15 minutes, they would close your connection. Stuff like that. Or sometimes, this is the old phone network, so sometimes the signal just fucking dropped and your connection broke, and you have to redial. So redialing an internet connection was something we did a lot. It was just like, oh, my connection was interrupted, I'll just redial. It was basically a reflex. So if you weren't negotiating with your family about who was getting online when and for how long, you would have these problems. So almost nobody, like you would have these problems even if you did. So almost nobody got online without negotiating with their family, like who was getting online for how long and for what purpose. The computer tended to be a family computer that was in a prominent place in the house that everybody could see, because fundamentally this was like still a business device. Rich families got a second land. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes 3. I knew a family that had 3. Nobody liked them. They were too rich. Nobody liked the person with the three phone lines, one for the parents, one for the only son they had, and one for the only daughter they had, and like I'm sure Saru knows the type. Basically that era's version of the Disney family. Because if you've ever seen like an ABC/Disney family, they act like they're middle class, but if you look at like the size of their house and the amenities that they have, it's almost always very upper class living in Disney families. So that was like our version of that. Ooh, it's almost ad time, isn't it? Did I catch it this time? Yeah, sure is. I'm gonna go ahead and run the ad. Take a piss break, go fishing, go piss. Let me copy lurk bait because it's not on my BRB screen yet. We're gonna do it live. There we go. Oh, that's the lurk bait audio. Professional streamer. Let's see if I can get this done before the. And on here we'll have it here, and we'll have it a little bigger. Let's see, and then we'll do that, and then I'll cut the mic, and then I will run the ads, and I'll see you guys soon. Hello. We are so back. Exclamation point fish to engage with the fishing minigame, by the way. I don't think I've said that all stream. Let's pull this shit back up. Let's pull this shit back up. I haven't done a drawy talkie in a while. So, you would always negotiate internet activity with not just your family, but like anybody you happen to be living with, whatever your living situation was, you would negotiate your internet access. So, I want you to think about the security implications of your internet only being on when you were using it actively. So during this period of time, there was not a lot of malware. Like, it existed, but it's not like it is today. Or it wasn't like it is today. Malware not only did completely different things. First of all, big data was not big business yet. So they're basically on a consumer level. There's not really an incentive to write botnet malware because none of your nodes would be online, but except for like maybe an hour or two every day for the chronically online. It wasn't like something you could count on being up even once a week. So that wasn't a thing. You could get malware, and generally you got it from pornographic websites. But what the pornographic malware would do would be to serve you ads for pornographic websites. Like, that's literally what the malware would do, is it would just show you ads for pornographic material. Like, it didn't erase your hard drive, it didn't steal shit from you, it's just like, hey, that porn you watched, here's some more of it, it's in your face constantly, click, 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 ooh, boobies. Come to our website and spend money, here's a 900 number dialer, have some phone sex. That's what malware was back then. A lot of it. And that's because the idea of like casting a really wide net and having malware do the things that it does now. Like, imagine trying to write a worm in an era where not only are most people on dial-up, but that's literally all that there is. It's not like there's a portion of the population that has always on internet and a portion that doesn't. Like, literally everybody has to actively be using their internet connection. And then it's off. And then their machine is effectively air-gapped anytime they're not actively using their internet connection. That's why in the 90s, in the 80s, personal cybersecurity was not a serious topic. Or rather, it's not a topic that a lot of people took seriously. You could do really, really risky shit online back then and be absolutely fine in contexts where today people would be like, dude, you're literally trying to get a virus. So, after always on internet, first of all, that always came in the form of a connection that qualified as a broadband connection. So this guy was connecting, after the internet started getting fast, quote unquote, this guy would connect at like 14.4 kilobits a second. Which we actually used to call baud before it hit like... Before there was a K there. We would just call this baud. And there's some technical reasons we called it that, but that's what it was called. Like, World of Warcraft was generally played at like... Not World of Warcraft, sorry. Warcraft 2 was generally played at like 9800 baud if you had a newer system. But it got much slower than that. But like the fast internet, that was like 14.4K, 28.8. And when it hit 56K, there were large ad campaigns for this. Yeah, 1 baud was 1 bit per second. But I don't remember seeing ad campaigns for modem hardware until it hit 56K. And you have to understand that 56K unlocked a few things. One was that while it was primitive, webcams started working really well at 56K. I don't remember that either, Saru. Like, that is some old information. And not... It was kind of pointless information as well, unless you were the people building the modems. But, now, webcams did work at 14.4 and 28.8, but they started working well at 56. Webcams did not work at 9800 baud. 14.4K was the glory days? I kind of agree. Webcams did not work at 9800 baud. Not the way that you would understand them, and they barely worked at 14.4. But what I can tell you, is that the first time I saw somebody basically sexed over a webcam was at 56K. That's the first time I saw that happen. It probably happened at 28.8. I definitely saw somebody, like, I had somebody flash a titty for me at 14.4. That did happen. This is RM's getting groomed story, but as an aside, that was my first titty flash. But, like, actually, like, hardcore, I'm playing with myself, spreading them. The first incident I saw of that was at 56K, because that's really when webcams could show motion. At like 140p or something like that. Like, really tiny resolution, but, like, you have to consider 140p was like a quarter of your monitor at that time. But it was full motion. Like, at 14.4 and 28.8, they were kind of, like, obviously slideshows, but you could see the other person, and you could hear them, and that was really cool. But 56K is when, like, motion started being possible over webcams. So that was a big deal. 56K loaded JPEGs as fast as 14.4 loaded, GIFs. It's GIFs. God. I just Shadow the Hedgehogged myself. Anyway, like a 56K modem would load JPEGs as fast as a 14.4 would load GIFs. That was really important. It changed how websites were designed. And this is also actually this is what enabled MySpace. Like, you could kind of use MySpace at these speeds, but this was... 56K was the speed you wanted to be at. So after broadband connection, this is where you could become an internet basement dweller. So this actually enabled you to be chronically online because you no longer had to negotiate your internet activity with others. And since you weren't bothering anybody with your internet usage, they could kind of forget that you were using it. And you could just go for hours and hours and hours. And I know we're all used to doing that now, but this was a brand new thing. So this is where family members start ignoring each other for the internet. Like, this starts breaking down family dynamics, because even in the dial-up days, you still had to interact with your family members to get your internet fix, even if you were like chronically online by the definitions of dial-up. You still had to talk to your family to like negotiate the usage. Everybody in the house could just pull the plug on you if they decided you had been on too long, or if you were being too much of a bedroom hermit. They could literally just, like, pull out the phone cord on a random jack, or pick up the phone. Cell phones existed in the 80s, but only for the rich. Yeah, and they really couldn't carry data either, even if you were rich. They were voice only. So there was that. I believe in the mid-90s, the first the widespread adoption of cell phones that had the text capability was happening. Yeah, absolutely, Saru. And that's also about the time that broadband outpaced dial-up as like what most people in the United States had as an internet connection technology. It was prominent in 2003, 2007, but it didn't, like, overtake dial-up until about the same era, until about 2010. Oh yeah, beepers! I remember beepers. Medical personnel still have those. So for those of you who don't know what a beeper is, that's a device you could ping, essentially, to let somebody know that they needed to call you. But the important thing about it was, like, the beeper was wireless. So even though the phone call had to be wired, you could let somebody know that they needed to call you, and that was a super... Yeah, that was a super, that was a big leap in capability. This was back during when everybody had to be on time all the time. Yeah, usually about 10 digits. Like, you knew, quote unquote, who sent the ping. But, before beepers, and beepers really didn't achieve widespread market penetration. Not everybody wanted to be bothered like that, and they were kind of expensive to, like, have. But the point is, you could. So prior to this, everybody is always on time wherever that they say they're going to be, unless they're trying to, like, dip off of the radar on purpose. Yeah, you bet drug dealers still use them? Probably. I bet you're right. We know that a certain group in the Middle East was using them because they exploded. The thing was, if you were going to meet your friends at the mall at 3, you had to be there at 3, because there was no way to call them and tell them you were running late. There was no way to notify them that you changed your mind and weren't coming and you were doing something else. Like, it was much harder to flake out. Well, not harder to flake out on people, but, like, it was not socially acceptable to flake out on people. Because if you were late, people would, like, they had two choices. They could sit there and they could wait for you, not knowing if you were coming at all, or they could proceed without you. And often they would just proceed without you. They'd wait maybe 5 minutes for a late person, and then they would go. Yeah, they should have checked their supplier of beepers. Yeah. So you had to be on time if you wanted to do anything. There was always at least one person, usually 2 or 3, that knew where you were going, how long you would be there, and when you would be back. Like, it's not just like, we're gonna meet up at the mall at 3. It's like, we're gonna meet up at the mall at 3, and then I'm gonna be back home at, like, 6 o'clock exactly. And my mom knows that if I say I'm home at 6 o'clock exactly, and I'm not there by 7 o'clock, she's literally hopping in the car and looking for me at that point. Like, at that point, she's already called all my friends' house to see if I went to my friend's house without telling her, and then to, like, yell at me and come get me. Or, you know, it's something like that. She's calling the mall to see if something happened to me in a way that the mall would know about. And then she's hopping in the car and fucking looking for my ass. That's what happens if you're an hour late in the pre-cell phone era. Neighborhood kids found each other usually by where the bikes were parked. Yeah, like you would have patterns, and people could find you by your patterns. You paid a lot more attention to your friend's patterns in that area. Like if your friend had a pattern of behavior, you paid attention to it because you could use that pattern of behavior to find them without having a phone connection. And that was an important skill to have. Yeah. Yeah, so they would always call the friend's house because, like, yeah, you're exactly right, Saru. It's like, there was an order of operations to this, but, like, if you were late, it started that order of operations. It's like, okay, they're like 30 minutes late. I'm going to start calling friends' houses. I'm going to start calling places where they said they would be. And if they're at none of those places, we're getting in the car and we're, like, physically looking for them. And that is not something, like, you did not want to be on the punishment end of that. Because that was a severe punishment in, like, any household I ever knew of. Like, only if you had made a habit of being a delinquent, inconsiderate fuckwit. Like, if that was your identity, okay. But most people did not have that delinquent identity. And it took a while to get it. Nowadays, you just, like... And this still strikes me as extremely rude, by the way. I don't know how this became socially acceptable. But, like, you're supposed to meet up with your friends somewhere, and I'll see, like, the kids these days, they'll call their friend, like, 5 minutes before they were supposed to meet and be like, yeah, I'm not coming. There won't even be, like, any sort of, like, fake excuse, like, oh, my sister's sick, I gotta take care of her, or whatever. They didn't even do the song and dance, which is how you canceled on people in the old days. You would at least come up with a fucking excuse. Now it's just like, yeah, I'm not coming. I'm not feeling it, man. It's not the vibes. And it's with some people this is socially acceptable, and I just don't fucking get it. But that is not how things used to work. So this enabled internet basement dwelling. Malware quickly adapted to this environment because, like, now we don't have the, like, now we have this state of constant connection, and that creates opportunities for people writing malware and targeting systems. Now we're getting into the era of keyloggers and botnets, because, like, if you're online all the time, I suddenly have a much bigger incentive to get a keylogger on your computer and wait for your bank account information. On that note, this is also when online services started becoming a bigger thing. Because in the dial-up era, a lot of your business was handled over the phone, and there was no reason to, like, have online services that competed with the same phone line that you just handled business over the phone with. Like, you would get home, and, like, your parents might have like a bill paying day where you would like where they would have like checks written out, and then they would like physically visit the businesses that they owed money to and gave them those checks. Like that was a whole thing. Like paying your bills used to be a whole thing. Now you just go online and you pay them, but like that wasn't always a thing, and a lot of people didn't trust the postal service to handle their bills correctly or on time, so oftentimes you would like get in the fucking car and you would go drop checks off at places where you owed people money. Utilities, rent, whatever, mortgage, all of that. You would hop in the fucking car, go to the bank, pay the bank, then you would go to your like propane supplier, pay your propane supplier, you'd go to your utility provider and then pay your utility provider, and then your bills were paid. And if you had more bills, you had to pay them that way. Or that was the best way to do it. That was the best way to confirm that they got the check, because like they would totally cut your service. But yeah, so online services started coming on, and like the internet, as you noted, know it started to be built. This is when Web 2.0 started being built. It wasn't here yet, but it started being built. And over on this side, this era is largely pre 230, and this era is largely post 230. Like, I don't think that was on purpose. Like, I think this was actually a coincidence. It just happened to work out that way. But most of the dial-up era is pre-Section 230, which is platform protection, which is what enables MySpace to exist. And after that is post-Section 230, but also broadband and always on. So if we go back to this other thing, the way you interacted with the internet changed. So at about the time broadband comes on, and about the time 230 passes, like broadband was maybe 2 to 3 years after 230 passed. Google comes online. Now, Google was not the only game in town. By this point, America Online had a search engine. So did Yahoo. Lycos. There were even businesses whose entire business was indexing the web. It was a new thing. But, like, there was a website called Spider, and then there was like Ask Jeeves was more or less a permutation of this. But this is when search engines started to be a thing. And then Google, which, you know, if you don't know, Google is actually a government-funded project, which, you know, I got opinions about that, but we'll move on. Google shows up, and Google lands, and it is instantly, far and away, the best search engine. And another thing about Google is that it was not a web portal. Like, these three guys over here, these web portals, they would feed you curated content from the internet. America Online would be like, hey, check out this website, check out that website, check out these news stories, blah, blah, blah. And Yahoo would have the same thing, and Lycos would have the same thing. They had their own chat rooms. Each of these platforms had their own chat rooms. America Online and Yahoo even had their own instant messenger service, because there wasn't a good way to find one without web portals at the time. So we need a new thing. We need a new thing. Now, I say there wasn't an easy way to get a messenger service at the time. Easy is relative. There was a technology at the time called IRC. It was not very secure at all. It still isn't. But there was a client for IRC chats that came along called IRQ. But this was like a thing you had to be told about. Like, this was not advertised. People who knew would tell people, and then those people would tell people, and you would find out about IRQ, IRC via word of mouth. You know why Google was best? Google was the only web search engine in the beginning that had the fastest loaded web. Yes. Exactly. Because, like I said, America Online, Yahoo, Lycos, they were content-rich web portals. They were serving curated web content. Google was literally looked basically the way it does now, the letters Google and the search bar. Though it did have this cute thing that I don't think it has anymore. I actually haven't... Yeah, it totally doesn't have it. When Google used to give you your results, the number of pages in the results, instead of having pages like 1 to 5 to whatever, every page became an O in Google. So if you had a search that generated a lot of results, the Google banner would look like this. And each O was like the next page. Yeah, no ads, no banners, no distractions. Absolutely correct. They also had a slogan for their company that said, "Don't be evil." Man, those were the days, huh? So America Online, they had a messenger service that they called America Online Instant Messenger, or for short, it was called AIM. Yahoo had Yahoo Instant Messenger, but they just called that Yahoo Messenger. They didn't abbreviate it. Lycos did not have one. Yeah, it also used to change the title design. Absolutely. Lycos didn't have one. Skype wasn't a thing yet. But Trillion was. There was another one. There was another big one that I'm struggling to think of now. Oh yeah, MSN Messenger. How could I forget? So, like, these were your big messengers at the time. And the big thing about these messengers, people forget this because of how normal this is now, because the internet made this normal as quickly as they could, and this is going to be directly related to MySpace. What all these had in common is that you could add persistent contacts. We call those like friends lists now, but not all of these called those friends. Like Yahoo Messenger literally called them contacts. Netscape, you're right, Netscape had a messenger. Like, this is a collaborative exercise in remembering the old internet. But the point is, you could have persistent contacts. Which, remember... Yeah, Netscape Navigator almost took Microsoft out. That's absolutely right. And they should have, because IE... I used WebCrawler for a search engine. They're sort of the same thing. The technology of searching the web is you have a web crawler, go out, find websites, report that to an indexing service, and then what you're actually searching is the index. You're not searching the web, you're searching the index of what the web crawler found. Yeah, a lot of, Spider was a name to refer to web crawling technology at the time, because not every web crawler was programmed with like the same logic. And the web crawler you're familiar with ran on a concept called Spider. So a lot of the search engines at the time did use spiders for mascots. Ooh, resubby. 6 months, Jesus. I really got to get rid of these defaults, man. I'll get there. I'll get there. But I appreciate the sub, man. I really do. But you've got these persistent contacts, right? That's a new thing on the internet at this time. Like, even your websites aren't persistent. Not all of them. The only other way to have a persistent contact was basically to be buddies with somebody on a forum website. But the thing is, like, these were dedicated messaging programs, so I could be on a website that was not, because we did not have tabbed browsers at this point. I had to open a browser for every single website I wanted to be on simultaneously, and it's not like I had the bandwidth to be on more than one at a time. So I'm not talking to the people on my forums if I'm not on the forum's website. But these are standalone programs. Suddenly, I can be on any fucking website I want to while having my persistent contacts open. Or know somebody who had a T1 server, yeah. Yep. But, that's the thing. Like, that's a new capability. I can have persistent contact as long as I'm online. So, like, to this day, that is why you have online indicators on things like Discord and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's still holdover design from an era where your contacts might be physically disconnected from the internet. So we had online status indicators for these early programs, and they were much more impactful. Like, somebody being online meant they were actively online, because this is like still the pre-broadband era. Yeah. Fuck, dude. My school had a T3. It was fucking nuts. T stands for trunk line. Anyway, this is important because you had a few web presence websites at this time. You had basically, yeah, my school was like an anomaly in many ways. I've described a few of them here, but my school system growing up was a real anomaly, and that's why my mom put me through so much shit to get me to go to school out of county. Like, the fucking Japanese were visiting our school system to see why it was so good. My elementary school had fiber to the desktop. Which was funny, because the line that brought the internet to the school was not fiber. It was a tier line, and I believe it was tier 1 at the elementary school. But the elementary school, like, after that point, everything was fiber. So, yeah. The, you know, come to think of it, that county spent a lot of their money on school, like, as a percentage. Like, as I'm remembering these details. Anyway, you had a few interesting websites back then. You had one called Angel Fire. And you had one called GeoCities. Yeah, man, this school was built in like the early 90s. I forget if it was like 90 or 91, but I was in the first class to have that school when it opened. So I remember all the tech they put in there because it was a high-tech school at the time. But you had Angel Fire and GeoCities, and the whole point of these was that users could have a personal website. And I'm pretty certain that outside of the base design of the websites, you had to learn HTML to alter your website to look like anything but the default appearance. I don't think there was a WYSIWYG yet. I'm pretty sure you literally had to know HTML to make your page look different from the default page that you got. But these were still important services. They let individuals have a website without having to have a server. That was a big deal. So now we're finally getting to, like, the part ZV wanted to know, which is, what the fuck was MySpace? And why do people remember it so nostalgically? And why are they trying to recreate it now with the MyOshi website? And based on that, why I think that will be a flash in the pan that fails. Because the reason we went over all this other shit is so that you would understand the context of technology at the time that MySpace existed. MySpace exists in, like, the liminal space between dial-up and broadband. That's important. But it does another important thing. It's like Angel Fire. It's like GeoCities, but it adds something. It adds persistent contacts. You would always start with one. That's where MySpace Tom comes from. The site owner / creator would always be your friend in the beginning. You could remove him later after you acquired more friends, but he was always your friend in the beginning. So imagine if you set up a brand new Facebook account. Imagine if it automatically friended you to Zuckerberg. That's what this was. So, like, you were automatically friends with Tom. He was your top friend until you got more friends. And, like, you had a feature called Top 5. We're not going to get into that right now, but you had, like, your top 5 friends. And it was a big deal to be in somebody else's top 5 friends. But the point is, you had persistent contacts. Hey, yeah, the system was so old you couldn't start with 0. Absolutely. Here's a big part of internet history. MySpace started the practice of using your real name online. Why was that? Because you had to know your friends to add them. And since discovering strangers on the internet was still in a very primitive state, your top 5 tended to be real-life friends. So, not everybody, but a lot of people started dropping their edgy internet online names because who wants to tell their mom, oh yeah, add your mom's pussy destroyer? Because, like, internet names have not gotten more mature or less mature since the dial-up days. So, the most foul gamer tag you can think of, we were still using those in the dial-up days, but you would not tell your mom, "Hey, add your mom's pussy destroyer to MySpace so that you have my MySpace." So people started using their real names in MySpace. Prior to this, everyone understood that you used a pseudonym online. MySpace came up about the time Napster got hit with a lawsuit. Yeah. Yep. I had an interesting time meeting strangers online through an MSN Messenger lobby. Woo! That's how I ended up groomed, applause. But this is what started the cultural shift of some people starting to use their real names online. Is because they wanted to add their real life friends and family members to their MySpace friends list, and they didn't want to go by their edgy online names when they told their real life friends who they were online. They wanted to go by the way the friend knew them. Yeah, within 5 minutes of joining the lobby, I got flashbanged with a random woman's pussy. She was pressuring me for... I was very... Yeah, that was my experience, pause. It's funny how... I won't say universal, but how much more common it was for the women to be the sex pests in this era of the internet. Yeah, MySpace started it before Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't want to tell your grandma your edgy name. You didn't want to tell your best friend your edgy name. Because they might tell your crush what your edgy name is. Or maybe, hint, hint, waifu origin story, maybe you didn't want to tell your new crush what your edgy internet name was. Like, imagine you're crushing on somebody in high school and she asks for your MySpace, because they always do. And like, oh yeah, just add, sexually explicit word plus racial slur plus, add that name. No. No, I'm not giving that name to my crush. Sorry. Those were the pay per minute call girls that moved over quick. Yeah. But yeah, you could do things on MySpace. Saru talked about it in chat a little, like for the sake of the VOD. It was pure HTML. There were no security rails on this at all. You could add, and many people did, your favorite emo song, really any WAV file or MP3. Actually, I think for a while you could only use WAV files. I don't think the site supported MP3 for its whole life. But we'll leave that alone for now, and you could set background music on your site, which loaded at page load, by the way, and there was no way really to turn it off. So if you went to your friend's page and they were blaring a very loud version of like some Evanescence song, the only way to turn that off was like to turn the sound down on the whole computer. And it was always some Evanescence or some edgy Linkin Park, or it was almost always some shit like that. Flash games did happen around the same time. Yeah, you're right, Saru. They absolutely did. And you also bring up another point. Late 90s, early aughts had the best classified pages for finding girls. They sure did, and one of those classified pages was MySpace. So, like, it's like your Angel Fire or your GeoCities page, but instead of building a website around, like, your personal interests, MySpace was like, you are the personal interest. This isn't just your personal webpage. It's your personal webpage that is about you, and it also has persistent contacts, which also came with its own private messaging systems. We called those PMs back in the day. We called those private messages, not direct messages. Which is actually a more important distinction than you might think. That's turned off again. Let's see. We can start with some StarCraft. You could do anything you could do in HTML at the time, which was like change the font color and size of anything. You could add whole ass frames, which is what I did. Like, I used a bunch of frames on mine, made it look real professional. You could add a blog section. Again, you did that with frames. God, what else? What else? Like, you could do literally anything HTML let you do, including cross-site scripting attacks. like I said, you put raw HTML into this thing. This is where a lot of millennials learned HTML. They didn't learn it at school, like maybe they had a course. But that's not the first place they touched HTML. The first place they touched HTML was MySpace. Because you couldn't have a cool MySpace page if you didn't know HTML. You literally, you just couldn't stand out. So a lot of people were very motivated to learn at least some basic HTML in the MySpace era. And we'll get into why Facebook took over from MySpace. But this was like the deal. There were not a whole lot of rules on MySpace. I'd already learned HTML and Java from being an internet startup. Yeah, I figured. But you're also not a millennial. Like, this is where millennials learned how to code HTML. Was MySpace. We're going to get into a feature. You could also browse other people's contacts. And their top 5 was usually prominent on their page. But this was a Halo feature. Because once everybody had a few contacts, you could start crossing distant social networks by going through contacts of contacts of contacts and like adding people that you thought looked interesting. And that is basically how MySpace became the first fully functional social media website. And that's also how Facebook just handed it its ass. Because MySpace did not recommend contacts. That feels like that should only have one M. Anyway, it could not recommend contacts. Content was basically lawless. So everybody's page looked like significantly different. I think adding people was also auto. It might have been. I'm not sure. I think you could add somebody, and to make that mutual, they had to add you, kind of like how it is on RuneScape, which also came out about this time. Just FYI. It worked similar to RuneScape, where you could have like a one-sided ad. Yeah. But like everybody's page looked different. People were allowed to make their page obnoxious. They were allowed to make their page so full of content that it took forever to load. So if you had somebody on MySpace that had broadband and you still had dial-up, it is likely that their page was almost inaccessible to you because they would just shove it full of content that for them loaded quickly, but for you took forever. You can make custom profile pictures, including hero animations in Dota. People get very creative. Yeah, I imagine. All right. So that's what MySpace was. And to recap, it was the first platform that let you do this at all. None of the messenger programs let you do this. This was considered a security no-no. It started the practice of using your real name online. I won't say first. But it popularized children learning HTML as a hobby. You're right, sorry, that's another thing. On MySpace, blocking was not a thing. I think you could block somebody from, like, your friends list or your messenger, but you could not block anybody from visiting your webpage. It was a web page. But I can't even remember if it had blocking functionality in the first place. That's kind of a fuzzy memory for me. But I do know that if it did have a blocking functionality, it was more like Twitter's current version of it, where it kind of just basically doesn't work. I have 5 pings now. Why? Nothing important. I've got to go through my ping settings and, like, adjust them. Yeah. I'm not sure it did either, Saru. That's a fuzzy thing. But if it did have it, yeah, if you knew the web address, it loaded. But if it did have it, it was only for, like, private messages and stuff. At no point were you able to keep somebody from loading your page. Or even elements of your page. That just wasn't a thing. But it's you got to remember that this is the environment that MySpace dominated in. And that's why my Oshi does not make any sense. None of these things are true anymore. Like, almost none of them, except for persistent contacts. That's like a basic internet feature, but that's also the problem. That's a basic internet feature now. You do not think of persistent contacts as a feature because that's default. Also, one of the reasons Facebook took over is because, like, this shit, all 3 of these things were obnoxious. People don't give Facebook enough credit for the fact that it curated and set hard limits on the amount of personalization somebody could do to their Facebook page. This was also an issue. Not as common, but it was an issue. Facebook handles for making connections better. Facebook recommends you people, that was wild. That was like their crowning feature, is that, like, you did not have to manually search through your mutual contacts to find a cool new person. Facebook would do that for you and recommend things. And, like, You can tell in my voice that I remember when that was revolutionary. We expect platforms to do that for us now. I haven't been on MyOshi, but I wonder if it does that. Because MySpace didn't. I wonder if MyOshi recommends contacts. MySpace did not. You had to, like, manually crawl through pages. Which you had to know the web address of, by the way. Because these were full-fledged web pages. So if you didn't know what their MySpace page was, it was very unlikely you would fucking find it. And that's another thing about Facebook, is that Facebook content is searchable. So, yeah, there's a lot of nostalgia involved here. But I don't see where that makes sense. Another thing that makes me cautious of MyOshi, and I said this the first day that it came out, you know what MySpace did not have? It did not have monetization of your data. At least not at this point. That came later. Facebook pioneered that. Zuckerberg pioneered personal data as a packaged product. MySpace didn't have that. It had ads. But that's how it monetized, was ads. That was literally it, by the way. That was the entirety of MySpace's monetization, was ads. MyOshi, as far as I know, does not have any explicit monetization. What does that mean? If you're not the client, you're the what? If you're not the customer, you're the what? Yeah, ad banners did come later, but, like, this was before... MySpace was also... They did not anticipate blowing up, either. That was, like, a college project for Tom, much in the same way that it was a college project for Zuckerberg. So MySpace was not even envisioned as a product when it was created. That came later, and that's why it didn't have ads at first, as Saru pointed out. That's correct, Saru. If you're not the client, you're the product. And MyOshi is targeted at who? People with the highest risk personal data? Maybe not the highest risk, but pretty high risk personal data needs? And it's not paid? It's not a paid service up front? What are they monetizing? Like, that concerns me. What if they're not monetizing anything right now? Well, what are they going to monetize in the future? Because running a web service at that scale is not free. It's not even cheap. You could run... Yeah, the Oshis. Exactly. Like, this smells. I'm sorry. Not sorry. This smells. I don't know who came up with this. Like, that's another thing. Who came up with this and why? Maybe I can stop being lazy. Maybe that's a thing I should be looking up. Ooh, I forgot. I neglected that ad break. But, like, myoshi.co. No algorithms is what they say. No AI. Avatar first. No pressure to share your IRL identity. customize CSS and HTML on your profile, it's like 2005 again. That's bad, by the way, depending on how they implemented that. There's a reason websites don't let you do that anymore. Just so we're clear, there is a big damn reason websites don't let you do that anymore. It's called cross-site scripting and server-side request forging. That's literally steal your cookies type shit. Like, by Jinxie. Who's Jinxie? What is Jinxie? Jinxie, some company. What the fuck is this? I'm gonna put this in Brave or something, and I'm gonna pull this up. Actually, I'm not sure I'm allowed to show a lot of this on stream. Come to think of it, this is a lot of furry. There's a lot of furries and porn on Jinxie. What the fuck? Is this like an asset selling page? They sell avatars? Of course they do. Yeah, there's a lot of sus shit on here. I can't really show this. But like custom CSS and HTML on your profile, that's... I'm not sure I trust them to implement that in a secure manner. I don't think... Ooh, this is actually dodgier than I thought at first. This is actually dodgier than I thought it was. Like, custom CSS, I could do a whole stream about if I actually prepared for it. User configurable CSS and HTML that loads for anybody who visits that page is a... Like I said, there's a reason we don't do this anymore. Anyway, what did I call this, Saru? The first day I learned about it was a honeypot. Other people in this chat can confirm that. I called this a honeypot day one. And the more I look at it, the more concerned I get. That custom CSS, well, let me pull this up. I'm going to pull this up in Brave so that y'all don't have to visit the website to see this. Bring that above Clip Studio. Okay, cool. It's correct from the word go. Okay, so I'm gonna remember to increase the size of this so y'all could actually see it. But like down here, that's not a feature. It reminds me of when I was cracking down on some people who were using Linux in my department, and their defense to why they should be allowed to continue doing what they were doing is, it's been fine since 1999, why should I change it now? Like, that is not the defense you think it is, bro. Things in 1999 were really fucking vulnerable. And that goes double for 2005. Like, this is not a feature. This is a vulnerability with a cute star next to it. Like if this is vibe coded or coded by anybody less than supremely competent, this is an issue, and I think it's an issue even if the people who coded it were extremely competent. Because like I said, there are huge companies that don't let you do this anymore, and there's a reason. It is so hard to sanitize user-generated code. That's why, like, stuff like Squarespace and stuff like that, that's why they're all WYSIWYG editors. What you see is what you get. Graphical editors, even, like, AI editors. And yeah, you can do custom whatever, like you can add code blocks and stuff, but there's a reason they pay gate that. Like, code blocks are pay gated past like the $250 a year tier. Like, if you want to get a Squarespace where you can't put in like code blocks, it's like $10 a year or some shit like that. But if you want to go up to the tier where you can add code blocks, it's suddenly $250 annually or something like that. Gee, I wonder why that is. You're going to tell me this website is free? Invite only? No algorithms, chronological only? I'm not sure that's a benefit, if I'm being real. Yeah, your top 5, your journal, yeah, your blog, your groups. Yeah, this is literally MySpace. Pages for VR chat worlds. And events. Oh boy. But the question here is, what's the monetization? Yeah, early malware was mostly HTML, though JavaScript could do a lot more back then. Let's be real. Browsers let JavaScript do a lot back then. But this was, MySpace was the age of JavaScript. But yeah, this concerns me. And that's coming from the guy that just told the story about how he spooked a sock. This is the guy who started the stream talking about how he spooked the people in the sock. This website concerns me. And I hope those concerns are misplaced, because there's a lot of people on this website. Let's look at their terms. Let's look at their terms. You must have a valid Jinxie account. Alright, so you have to sign up for the asset selling website. You are responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of your account credentials and for all activities that occur under your account. That is a very weird way to phrase that. Let me think about that for a second. Because like, literally every other website on the planet, like every other service on the planet, does not have this in their FAQ. They have this in a, privacy and safety area where they teach you good general safety practices, and somewhere in their terms is like, you are responsible for anything that happens on your account, never share your password with anyone. It is never worded, you are responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of your account, because what that implies is that they aren't. What that implies to me as a CISSP is that they are taking no responsibility for the confidentiality of your account. Hey, waifu! Thanks for the sub! This is so tinfoil hat. What do you mean? Like, I think this wording matters. Like, I deal with contracts a lot. This wording matters. Whether that's how they meant it or not, this wording does matter. Like, this is giving me sus vibes. User content. You retain ownership of your of content you post on MyOshi. By posting content, you grant MyOshi a non-exclusive license to display, store, and share your content as part of the service. That's pretty straightforward. Prohibited content. You cannot violate law, infringe on property rights, which is also this. Contains malicious... Oh, no. Oh, you're joking? Oh, no, chat. Why would this explicitly be in the prohibited content? Can anybody guess? Can anybody guess why this would be in the prohibited content? Where is it? There. So let's put those together. We allow you to make custom CSS and HTML, which I had security concerns about. And you agree not to post content that contains malicious code or scripts. Honey, I'm coming home. Thank you, sweetie. This sounds like a tacit admission to me that they know damn well that custom CSS and HTML easily could contain malicious code or scripts. What was that line over here about, being solely responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of your account credentials? Not your account, by the way. Your account credentials. That's a really weird way to put that. And down here, you promise not to do this? Like, I'm glad it's invite only, but I don't think the goal is to remain invite only. I think they said that they were invite only so that they could maintain server load in a responsible manner. They're not invite only because of this. Harasses, threatens, that's normal. Is sexually explicit. Again, that's covered up here. Good to have it twice, but that's covered up here. Also, these are your only 5 prohibited content rules? Really? Really? So, what about people that post adult content? Are you not taking their 2257 forms? It's not prohibited content, but I don't see any 2257 forms. Or do they verify your identity at all? Like, do they verify your age? Termination. Like, these are... I like terms of service that are concise and to the point. These are too short. This is not enough terms. This is a red flag. This is a black flag. And I know that many here may not be familiar with that term, but black flag is worse than red. Black flag means that you're not a red flag to me. Black flag means you're a red flag to the whole industry. I put you in the black book. You are done. That's what black flag means. Retro style. Sounds like it's also retro security. How do I get an invite? How do I customize my profile? Props. What are top friends? No, this is StarCraft 2, INAC. If you're talking about the music. Also, welcome in, buddy. Where do I report bugs or feature requests? Yeah, no, this is not enough terms. This is not enough terms of service. Oh, God. What happened to their website? There we go. Oh, black flag. I got it. Okay. I got it. That's not enough terms. Let's see if privacy policy uh does better. Information we collect. When you use we collect information you provide directly, such as your profile information, posts, and messages. We will also collect data usage to improve this service. So this is how they're monetizing. They're collecting your data. How we use your information. To provide and improve my Oshi services. Improve also includes selling for money. To communicate with you about your account. Enforce terms. Protect against fraud and abuse. We do not sell your personal information. What about the information that's not personal? We may here we go. We may share information with service providers who help us operate MyOshi or where required by law. Still, that's not enough. You can access, update, or delete your account information at any time through your settings. Copy of your data. That's GDPR compliance. Or ask us to delete your. So that this entire line is GDPR compliance. Cookies. We use cookies to keep you logged in and remember your preferences. We do not use tracking cookies for advertising purposes. Advertising? So I guess they have ads? I agree, Saru. I think they're hoping they're the next Discord. This is not enough privacy policy. I can't believe I'm saying that. This is not enough terms of service when it loads. That's not like a glitch, like this is... I have 2 gigs down. I can... Oh, that's a bad sign. I can accelerate the page loading by hitting the stop loading button. Oh, that's a bad sign. This is not enough terms of service. My alarm bells are... they're going off. No malicious links or code. Tacit admission that you can insert malicious code. No impersonation. No promotion of self-harm or violence. No content involving minors in sexual situations. Be original. Blah, 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 blah. What these terms say is that I can post sexually explicit material without providing them my identification or a 2257 form. If this will never reach a lawyer, but if you are a lawyer and these people contact you to defend a case involving a data breach or 2257 issues, run away. Omni, I'll be real with you. I kinda wonder if they wanted to name this site Oshi Fans and hit a little snag in that plan. I'm kinda wondering. Knowers know. This is concerning. I have concerns. If it is not this is a 230 issue. If it is not against the platform's terms of service to have explicit adult content, then they have to provide the identification and legal mechanisms to comply with things like 2257. They have to verify the age of people that are... At least they said no kids. They have to verify the age of everybody who even accesses the site. Ooh, this is so much worse than I thought. Or it potentially is. At the very least, this is the most unprofessional terms of service I've ever seen. Like, I thought my free cams had a very, human language worded terms of service. But this is... Like, they didn't even use AI. They didn't even tell AI to give them a boilerplate terms of service. They just, like, wrote it on a napkin. I don't know, fellas. I don't know. Tell you what I'm going to do after stream is, I'm going to ask Nero what information they made him provide when he signed up. I wonder if that's handled in the other website's account. Because in the facts, they're like, hey, to use this, you have to have an account at that other website. But I can't show that other website on stream. It's got stuff on there John Twitch does not want me showing on stream. Exclamation mark fish, by the way. This smells to high heaven. This smells to high heaven. I think I'm going to start warning people that I give a shit about this website. I don't even know what to say here. I have to look into this. I have to. This is crazy. This might be my first video, boys. Is this shit? What the fuck? I'm at a loss, honestly. As y'all could easily tell, like... Fuck. Waifu says this minimum rule set seems like someone went, if we can keep it simple, it will work, right? No. No, this rule set is so simple, it tells me that the people who wrote it are not aware of their rights and responsibilities in a legal sense. It tells me they're not aware of the things that they have to do. You had the same feelings? Same feelings as who? Me or waifu? Shit, dude. Hey, Nero! Welcome in! Buddy, I have some questions for you! I have some questions for you, man! You don't have to answer them on stream. Oh, yeah, me? Yeah. Actually, yeah, let me get your reaction to this. Or you can, like... dodge out. You drank an entire bottle of wine during the interview. Oh, man. I don't want to be a buzzkill, but, I have some issues with this Mayoshi thing that I'm hoping you can provide some insight on. I have some deep concerns here. I'm kind of wondering what info they made you provide to them. And the reason I'm wondering that, let me get straight to the brass tacks, is because under prohibited content, they only have 5 tenets under prohibited content, and safety has a few more. You can't violate the law. You can't infringe on copyright, which is you cannot violate the law. You cannot contain malicious code or scripts, which is, that's its whole other thing. You can't harass, threaten, or abuse others, and you can't have sexually explicit material involving minors, which is also this one. And under safety, no content involving minors in sexual situations, no self-harm, no malicious links or code, no impersonations of others. What none of this says is that sexually explicit content is prohibited. I don't see that here. Which is a problem, because I don't see anything about conforming to 2257 regulations. I don't see anything about verifying your age. I don't see anything about verifying your identity beyond a form that you know, I don't see like I don't see anything about like taking a face scan for age verification. I don't like, I have some major compliance issues with this. It was an email sign up after getting the invite, and I'm assuming the form did not validate any of that information. Like, it was just like, you filled out the form in a dude trust me kind of way, and then it was, then you were good to go? Because that's a huge problem. Like, the moment anyone puts anything, like, sexually explicit on this website, that is a huge problem. Enter your email, choose your... Oh my god. That's bad, Hoss. Like, I hate to be like, think of the children here, but there's no age verification, and there's no prohibition on sexually explicit content. You can't tell me these people don't know what lewd tubers are, considering the content that's on Jinxie. I might have to drop a drama video on this. This is, woo, Letty. You think there would be children in an industry where anonymity is key? Yeah, that totally didn't happen to Elf and Psyop or nothing. Leaflet's not in trouble over that right now. Who are the other myriad other creators that got accused of all sorts of heinous shit because it turned out there was a minor in their Discord at some point where minors were explicitly not allowed to be? Oh, Leaflet's being gone after because somebody found out that somebody in their Discord was a minor. That's how I understand the situation. I could be wrong, but it sounds like, oh boy, we found one. Time to put that all on Leaflet. Like, it's just nothing burger harassment because she procced Chud on the meter, is what I think. She procced Chud on the Google Doc. So now people are just finding anything they can. This is not enough terms of service. Holy fuck. It's certainly not enough terms for a site that does not prohibit sexually explicit material. Not only does it not prohibit sexually explicit material, it doesn't prohibit the stuff that everybody else prohibits. Like, if you wanted to post sexually explicit material on this website, you could post CNC. You could post, because, like, CNC itself isn't banned. It's just It's just something that the industry decided was not a good idea to have. Incest kink is okay here. Diaper furs are okay here. Age play is probably good. Hypno and other non-consent stuff is probably good. Like, this is an issue. This is not enough prohibited items. Deeply concerned. I'm still kind of stun locked. Like, community guidelines. Wait, is it safety or community? Yeah, up here, this is community guidelines, but safety goes to this same page. Oh, jeez. I'll have to, like, I can't show Jinxie's website on stream. I'll have to go over there and see if there are any protections over there that then transfer to my Oshi, because my Oshi requires the Jinxie account. So I've got to see if there's any, like, transitive property protections that come from needing a Jinxie account. But I still think this is bad and, like, not enough. Like, there should at least be a hard link to the Jinxie toss. This is sketch. This is sketch as fuck. I'm kind of glad I can't see like, you can't tell me a lewd tuber that's on my Oshi has not posted anything sexually explicit yet. You can't tell me that hasn't happened. Nero, you have an account now. How easy is it to find sexually explicit material right now? I'm putting you on the spot, man. You don't actually have to do it, but I think it's something we should talk about later. Ask Ebic. Ebico's on it! Oh, no! Oh, no! This is bad, guys. Oh, jeez. I thought I was just gonna find a little unprofessionalism and a little sketch, but I guess it would be easy if things loaded. Give me one. Yeah, I'm having loading problems on this website too. Like, it does not load fast. You think if you go back to 2005 style website, you would at least have it load quickly. What's the .co domain again? RM is getting the T from the app, if you know what I mean. Yeah, like, you're right. Now I'm worried about stuff like SQL injection and all sorts of shit. I wonder what this website's vulnerable to. It would not be legal or ethical for me to try to find out on my own, but I'm concerned. Anybody want to go war driving? Because that's... war driving is far less sketch than this shit. Jesus. I'm still kind of stun locked. Anyway, Nero, exclamation mark fish works now. I've got the whole fishing thing going. You can catch a fish. I've already caught a whale shark. It was my first catch on the stream. So, get good. There you go. We'll get a little chat look from a boy Nero. Oh, no, that's a single exclamation mark. That's rough. You got a skateboard. Sal Cow to 360. You caught a junk. Why is the junk more stars than the rare stuff? I think there's a setting for that in the app. but I think the setting is backwards from what they intend the setting to be. It's weird. But it's like, it's more stars for common stuff. That seems wrong to me. Anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna call it here because I can't move my brain past how bad this is, and this is about my normal stop time anyway. So I will leave the rest of the weekend to you guys. I'm also going to uncharacteristically remember to look for people to raid. Who's going right now? Oop, ZV's going. Let's raid ZV. Be nice to ZV. You know, follow her rules, not mine. We gon' raid. Go to my buy screen. I'm gonna leave fishing up if anybody wants to do that off stream. If anybody wants to do that after the stream is over, I'm just gonna leave fishing open until it desyncs and breaks. Well, see you in Z's.